The first thing I saw when I reached the pediatric ICU was my wife standing outside bed 7 with her hand on another man's shoulder. Not my daughter's bed. Not my child's room. Another man's shoulder. My daughter, Ivy, was 8 years old, weighed less than she should have, and had a heart that had been fighting since the day she was born. At 5:58 that evening, the cardiology fellow had called me and said, "Mr. Vale, Ivy's oxygen saturation is unstable. We're moving her to the pediatric ICU for continuous monitoring." I'd left a client audit in the middle of a sentence. I drove through 40 minutes of rain and arrived with Ivy's stuffed rabbit under my arm. But bed 7 had a boy in it. Julian Voss's boy. Julian stood in the doorway, tall, clean-shaven, polished in the way men look when they know someone important is protecting them. His son slept under a warm blanket, connected to monitors, while my wife Maren spoke softly to him like the rest of the hallway didn't exist. I looked past them. Ivy sat on a narrow transport bed near the nurse's station, pale and sweating, a blue mask over her face. Her small hand gripped the rail. A young nurse adjusted her foreline while pretending not to notice my expression. I walked toward my daughter. "Daddy," Ivy whispered through the mask. I bent down and kissed her forehead. Her skin was damp. Her eyes searched mine with the tired fear she always tried to hide whenever doctors used serious voices. "I'm here," I said. "I'm not leaving." Maren finally noticed me. "Rowan," she said, stepping away from Julian. "Don't start." That was her first sentence to me. Not "Ivy is okay." Not "I'm sorry." Not "let me explain." Don't start. I turned my head slowly. "Why is Ivy in the hallway?" Maren's mouth tightened. She wore her hospital badge clipped to the pocket of her navy blazer, Director of Pediatric Access. That title used to make me proud. It meant she helped children get care. It meant she understood how terrifying the system could be for parents who didn't know whom to call. It meant she knew exactly what she had taken from her own daughter. "Nolan crashed faster than expected," she said. "His case needed the bed first." Julian lowered his eyes in a performance of gratitude. "Rowan, man, I know this is difficult." I didn't look at him. "I wasn't asking you." Maren inhaled sharply. "Please don't embarrass everyone in the ICU corridor." "My daughter is not a favor you can trade," I said. The nurse's hand froze on Ivy's foreline. Julian's face changed for half a second. There it was, the flash of satisfaction. He wanted this. He wanted me angry. He wanted Maren defending him in front of me. Maren stepped closer, lowering her voice like I was a misbehaving visitor. "Nolan needed immediate monitoring. Ivy is stable enough for transitional care until the next bed opens. I was told she was being moved here. She will be, as soon as possible." "That is not an answer." Julian sighed. "Come on, Rowan. Be mature about this. We're talking about children." The way he said it made something in me go quiet. I'd spent 9 years being the reasonable husband. I paid the mortgage on the house Maren wanted because it was closer to the hospital. I took Ivy to appointments when Maren was on call. I remembered medication schedules, insurance renewals, which stuffed animals were allowed into MRI rooms. I sat beside Maren's parents in waiting rooms when they needed procedures, and paid the bills they never mentioned. I'd never minded carrying weight for my family. But family wasn't supposed to use your back as a bridge to reach another man. I took out my phone. Maren's eyes dropped to it. "What are you doing?" Her face flushed. "Do not record me at work. We're in a public corridor discussing my daughter's medical access. If you'd prefer, we can continue with risk management present." Julian stepped forward. "That's unnecessary." I finally looked at him. "You don't get to decide what's necessary for my child." He smiled with one corner of his mouth. Maren made the clinical call. That was the second flash. Not the doctors. Not the ICU attending. Maren. I opened my messages and scrolled to the last text from the hospital coordinator. "ICU transfer confirmed. Bed 7 reserved for I. Vale. Please arrive through East Pediatric entrance." I took a screenshot. Then I opened the family portal. The transfer note had been changed. Father agreed to delay ICU transfer pending bed availability. My thumb stopped. I read it again. Father agreed. I had agreed to nothing. Maren saw my expression. Rowan. When did I agree to delay her transfer? She glanced toward the nurse. This is not the place. It became the place when my name was used in a medical note without my consent. Julian lifted both hands. No one is trying to hurt Ivy. She's in a hallway with unstable oxygen while your son is in the bed reserved for her. I said, do not tell me what no one is trying to do. I stepped to the nurse's station. The charge nurse, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and steel-gray hair, looked up before I even spoke. Her badge read Elaine Porter. I need the hospital's risk management officer, I said. I need the attending physician responsible for pediatric ICU transfers. I need a copy of the transfer timeline for Vale, and I want it noted that I did not consent to delay her ICU admission. Maren came after me. Rowan, stop. I kept my voice calm. It was a judgment call, she said. Then the people who made it can explain it on record. You're letting your jealousy cloud your judgment. That sentence almost made me laugh. Jealousy. Our daughter was fighting for breath beside a printer cart, and my wife wanted to make this about jealousy. I turned toward her. You want to know what's clouding my judgment? My child's lips turning blue while you hold your ex-boyfriend's hand. The hallway went silent. Julian's jaw worked. Maren looked around, humiliated, then leaned in. Keep your voice down. I am keeping my voice down. Then stop making threats. I haven't made one yet. I opened another contact. My attorney, Celeste Wynn, had handled compliance disputes for medical nonprofits for 12 years. If you're enjoying our stories, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to us and helps us create more amazing content for you. We're on a mission to reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and every single subscription brings us one step closer. Thank you for being part of our journey. She'd once told me, the fastest way to learn whether a hospital made a mistake or hid one is to ask for the audit trail before they have time to polish the story. I texted her 3 lines. ICU bed reserved, reassigned to Julian Voss's son. Chart says I agreed to delay. I need emergency compliance steps now. Then I opened the portal for the Vale Pediatric Recovery Fund. The fund wasn't huge compared to billionaire hospital donors, but to St. Aurelia Children's Hospital, it mattered. My late father had left me a trust, and after Ivy's second surgery, I'd used part of it to create a restricted fund for pediatric recovery beds, cardiac monitoring equipment, and family support during extended admissions. The next scheduled payment was due at midnight, $275,000. I clicked Hold Disbursement pending compliance review. A confirmation screen appeared. Maren stared at my phone. What did you just do? I stopped the next fund transfer. Her face changed for the first time that night. She didn't look angry. She looked scared. Rowan, she said carefully, don't drag the fund into this. The fund exists for children like Ivy, not for private favors. You don't understand how access works. I understand enough to know you can't use a restricted pediatric recovery fund while falsifying a parent's consent note. Julian took another step toward us. That's a serious accusation. It is, Maren whispered. You're going to damage the hospital because you're upset with me. No, I said. You may have already damaged the hospital because you forgot our daughter was not less important than him. A door opened behind us. A doctor I recognized, Dr. Sloan, Ivy's cardiologist, came into the corridor with a tablet in her hand. Her eyes moved from me to Maren to Julian and back to Ivy. Mr. Vale, she said, I just saw the transfer delay. Did you approve it? No. Maren stiffened. Priya, Nolan's case required. Dr. Sloan held up a hand. I asked for Ivy to be moved to ICU. She needs continuous rhythm monitoring. Who changed the bed assignment? No one spoke. The monitor beside Ivy beeped too fast. I crossed the hall and took Ivy's hand. Her fingers were cold. Daddy, she said, trying to lift the mask. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart. I tucked the rabbit under her arm. Adults are in trouble. Not you. Elaine, the charge nurse said, appearing beside me with a folded sheet of paper. She didn't look at Marin. Mr. Vale, she said quietly. Risk management is on the way. We're moving Ivy to a high-acuity observation room until ICU opens. Is that enough? Dr. Sloan asked. It's better than the hallway. I'll stay with her until we have a bed. Marin's voice softened. Rowan, let me come with you. I looked at her wedding ring, then at the hand that had rested on Julian's shoulder. No. Her eyes widened. She's my daughter. Then you should have remembered that before I got here. A security officer came down the hall with a woman in a charcoal suit. Julian retreated into bed 7 as if innocence had walls, while Dr. Sloan and the nurses prepared to move Ivy. Elaine touched my sleeve. It was quick, almost nothing. When I turned, she leaned just close enough for me to hear. This wasn't a mistake, she whispered. Your wife changed it herself. Then she walked away before Marin could see. I looked back at my wife. Marin stood under the bright hospital lights, her badge shining, her face pale, and for the first time in 9 years, I didn't wonder how to fix us. I wondered how much she had already broken. Risk management arrived, a clipboard, a calm voice, and the kind of eyes that had seen enough hospital scandals to know when a hallway wasn't just a hallway. Her name was Denise Calder. She introduced herself to me first, not to Marin. I noticed that. So did Marin. Mr. Vale, Denise said. I understand there's a concern regarding your daughter's transfer to pediatric ICU. There's more than a concern. I was informed at 5:18 that Ivy had an ICU bed. When I arrived, that bed had been reassigned. Her chart now says I agreed to delay her transfer. I did not. I want the audit trail preserved. Marin made a small sound behind me. Denise, this can be handled internally. Denise turned to her. Dr. Vale, are you currently acting as Director of Pediatric Access in this matter? Marin hesitated. I was involved in coordinating care. For your own child? For multiple children. Denise wrote something down. It was a tiny movement, barely a flick of the pen, but Marin saw it and stiffened. She was used to rooms bending toward her authority. She wasn't used to being documented like a risk factor. Julian emerged from bed 7 with perfect timing, eyes damp, voice low. Please, I don't want anyone punished. My son just needed help. He said it to Denise, but his eyes slid toward me. I knew men like Julian. They never asked directly for special treatment in public. They simply created a scene where refusing them looked cruel. They survived on the guilt of people who cared about appearances. Denise didn't smile. Mr. Voss, I'll speak with you separately. Julian nodded with careful humility. Of course. Marin stepped closer to Denise. Nolan's respiratory status declined suddenly. Ivy was stable enough for transitional care. It was an access decision under pressure. Dr. Sloan, who'd been checking Ivy's portable monitor, looked up. That is not the clinical recommendation I entered. Marin's lips pressed together. Priya, we all know these decisions can evolve. Yes, Dr. Sloan said. They evolve through documented clinical escalation, not through a manual override of a reserved cardiac ICU bed. The corridor went quiet again. Ivy's transport bed started moving. I walked beside it, keeping one hand on the rail. Marin followed. Rowan, she said softly, please don't shut me out in front of everyone. I didn't stop walking. You shut Ivy out of an ICU bed. That's not fair. No, what happened to her wasn't fair. I was trying to prevent another child from crashing, and you chose the child attached to Julian. Her face twisted. You're making this ugly. It was ugly before I named it. We reached the high-acuity observation room. It had glass walls, a monitor above the bed, an oxygen port, and enough space for 2 nurses to move quickly. It wasn't ICU, but it wasn't a hallway either. Dr. Sloan helped settle Ivy. The monitor picked up her rhythm, and I watched the lines like they were a language I'd been forced to learn against my will. Is she safe here for the moment? I asked. Dr. Sloan chose her words carefully. She still needs ICU-level monitoring overnight. I'm escalating. I want an independent review of any decision made after 5/18. Denise nodded. That's already being initiated. Marin crossed her arms. This is absurd, Rowan. You're treating me like I'm negligent. I looked at Ivy, whose eyes were half closed. I'm treating you like someone who made a choice. Marin's voice cracked. I am her mother. Then act like it. She flinched. I didn't enjoy it, that was the strange part. Some men might have felt satisfaction watching a person who hurt them finally bleed. I felt nothing clean enough to call satisfaction. I felt my daughter's cold fingers in my palm, and a deep, steady anger that had no need to shout. Denise asked Marin to step outside. Marin refused at first. Then Denise said, Dr. Vale, I need to remind you that this is now a formal risk review. That moved her. She went out. Dr. Sloan stayed near Ivy. Mr. Vale, she said, quieter now. I need to ask something difficult. Did you have any conversation with Dr. Vale today about delaying the transfer? No. No call, no verbal consent, no message. I was in a device safety audit until the hospital called me. I have the call logs and the meeting transcript. She nodded. Please preserve them. I already am. Her eyes softened. Good. My phone buzzed. Celeste, call me now. I stepped to the corner of the room where I could still see Ivy. Celeste didn't waste time. Tell me exactly what happened. I did. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, You did the right thing freezing the disbursement. Don't threaten anyone. Don't accuse beyond what you can prove. Ask for preservation of the audit trail, bed management logs, portal edits, access credentials, internal messages, and any manual override notes. Already asked for the audit trail. Good. Now send a formal written request. I'll draft it in 10 minutes. Also, does your wife have any authority over the fund? She's listed as hospital liaison for program reports. Revoke it tonight. I closed my eyes for 1 second. I thought of Marin at the kitchen table, hair tied up, glasses sliding down her nose, telling me the fund needed a hospital liaison who understood pediatric access. I had trusted her. I had signed the form. Rowan, Celeste said. Did she have the ability to influence which patients were associated with funded beds? She shouldn't. That isn't what I asked. I looked through the glass. Marin stood in the hall with Denise. Julian hovered nearby, his face arranged into concern. I don't know, I said, but I'm going to find out. Good. And Rowan, yes, your first priority is Ivy's care. Your second is preserving evidence. Your third is not giving your wife private chances to explain before you know what she needs to explain. I almost laughed. That obvious? I've represented enough husbands who wanted the truth and settled for tears. Don't do that. I won't. After the call, I revoked Marin's liaison access. Then I emailed the foundation administrator. Effective immediately, no communications from Dr. Marin Vale are authorized regarding Vale Pediatric Recovery Fund disbursements, reporting, patient allocation, or program use. All pending and future funds remain on hold pending compliance review. I copied Celeste. Within 3 minutes, Marin's phone rang in the hallway. I watched her answer. Her face went from irritation to disbelief. Then she looked through the glass at me. For years she had mistaken my quietness for weakness. She had mistaken my patience for a lack of options. She had forgotten that the man who packed Ivy's hospital bag also read every contract he signed. The door opened. Marin stepped in slowly. You revoked my access. I didn't turn from Ivy. Yes. You had no right. It's my foundation. It supports my hospital. It supports children. Those are not the same thing. Her nostrils flared. You're punishing sick kids because you're angry at me. No. I'm stopping my money from being used in a process I no longer trust. That fund keeps recovery beds open. Then the hospital should be very interested in proving those beds aren't assigned through personal favors. She stared at me as if I'd become someone else. Maybe I had. Or maybe she was finally meeting the version of me that had existed before I loved her enough to soften every edge behind her. Julian walked past the glass and paused just long enough to make eye contact with me. He lifted his phone. typed something with one thumb, and kept walking. A moment later my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Marin still answers when I call. You just pay the bills. I stared at the message. Then I smiled for the first time that night. Marin saw it and frowned. What? I turned the screen toward Celeste's email thread and forwarded the message as an attachment. Nothing, I said. But it wasn't nothing. It was a gift. By midnight, Ivy still hadn't been moved into ICU. Dr. Sloan stayed beyond her shift. Elaine brought me coffee I didn't drink. Denise came in twice to confirm details, each time more serious than the last. At 12:37 a.m., a hospital administrator named Paul Mercer arrived, sweating under his suit jacket, no relation to me, though he asked twice if we'd met. Mr. Vale, he said, we're working to resolve the bed situation. You're working to resolve the fact that my child was removed from a reserved ICU bed by manual override. He swallowed. We are reviewing. Good. Marin stood near the doorway, arms folded tightly. Rowan, can we talk privately now? I looked at Ivy. She was asleep, but the skin around her mouth still looked too pale. No, I said. Marin's eyes filled. You won't even let me explain. You had your chance in the corridor. You told me not to start. That was before you turned this into a legal war. No, that was before I understood you had already turned our daughter into collateral. She covered her mouth like the sentence had physically struck her. At 1:12 a.m., Elaine returned. She carried no paper this time. Her face was careful. The ICU bed is ready, she said. My shoulders loosened for the first time in hours. But Elaine didn't leave. Mr. Vale, she added. Risk management asked me to tell you the transfer log has been preserved. Marin looked up sharply. Why would you tell him that? Elaine met her eyes. Because he asked before anyone else could change it. That was the moment Marin truly understood. This wasn't a husband begging for an explanation. This was a father building a case. Ivy was moved to ICU at 1:28 a.m. I walked beside her bed all the way through the double doors, past the hand sanitizer station, past the small family waiting room where parents slept in chairs because fear made sleep cheap. I didn't relax when they settled her into bed 3. I didn't relax when Dr. Sloan confirmed the monitor was reading properly. I only breathed when Ivy opened her eyes and whispered, Rabbit. I tucked the stuffed rabbit under her arm. There, I said. He made it. She gave me the smallest smile. Marin stood at the foot of the bed like someone waiting to be invited into her own life. She tried to touch Ivy's blanket, but Ivy had already closed her eyes again. Dr. Sloan asked Marin to step outside for a clinical update. That wasn't normal, parents were usually updated together. But Marin was no longer being treated only as a mother. She was being treated as part of the incident. I watched her leave. Julian was gone by then. His son had been moved to a monitored step-down unit after an independent review concluded he was stable enough for non-ICU care. I didn't celebrate that. Julian Voss was a child. He hadn't chosen his father. He hadn't chosen to become a weapon in another man's old romance. But Julian had chosen. And Marin had chosen. My phone buzzed again. At 2:04 a.m., Celeste sent a formal preservation letter, already addressed to Street Aurelia's general counsel, hospital compliance, risk management, and the board secretary. Preserve all records related to the ICU transfer of I. Vale, including but not limited to bed assignment logs, access credentials, manual override notes, patient priority scoring, internal messaging, call logs, portal modifications, consent notes, staff witness statements, and communications involving Dr. Marin Vale and Julian Voss. I read it twice, then sent it at 2:17 a.m. Marin came back alone. She looked exhausted now. Not sorry, not yet, just exhausted, defensive, cornered. Rowan, she said, I need you to understand something. I need to understand why the chart says I consented. She sat in the chair across from me. It was entered as a placeholder. A false consent note is not a placeholder. She closed her eyes. I didn't personally write that line. Who did? She hesitated. I leaned forward. Who wrote that I agreed to delay Ivy's ICU transfer? Her silence answered before her mouth did. Marin, one of the access coordinators, may have used standard language. Based on what? Based on the understanding that you wouldn't object once I explained. I stared at her. There are moments in a marriage when one sentence lifts years off the table and shows you what was underneath. Once I explained. She hadn't believed she needed my consent. She'd believed she needed enough time to tell a story that made my objection inconvenient. You used my name before asking me, I said. I made a judgment call. You made a decision, and planned to manage my reaction afterward. She looked away. I pulled up the anonymous screenshots I'd received an hour earlier. The sender had used a temporary email, but the images were clear. Julian, can you secure the cardiac bed tonight? Nolan can't sit in ER overflow again. Marin, Ivy is on the list for bed 7. Julian, she's stable though, right? You told me she always looks worse than she is. Marin, don't put words in my mouth. Julian, I'm scared. March, I wouldn't ask if I had anyone else. Marin, I'll see what I can do. Julian, you always do. That's why I called you. The second screenshot was worse. Julian, Rowan won't understand. Marin, Rowan understands. Children come first. Julian, does he understand? I came first once, too. Marin, don't. Julian, sorry. Julian, I'm just tired. Marin, I'll handle Rowan. I turned the screen toward her. Marin went still. Where did you get that? That's what matters to you? Her lips parted, but no sound came. You told him you would handle me, I said. She stood. Those messages are out of context. I'd love to hear the context where they get better. I deleted them because I knew you'd misread them. You deleted them because they show you knew exactly whose bed you were taking. Her eyes flashed. I did not take Ivy's bed. I reallocated resources to a child. To your ex's child. After he reminded you he came first once. She slapped her hand on the armrest. Stop saying it like that. Like what? Like I cheated. I looked at Ivy through the glass wall. Her chest rose and fell under the hospital light. This is worse, I said quietly. Marin recoiled. How can you say that? Because if you'd slept with him, you would have betrayed me tonight. Instead you betrayed her. Her face crumpled for 1 second. Then pride came back like armor. You're being cruel. No, I'm being accurate. She wiped her eyes quickly, angry that tears had appeared without permission. I was under pressure. So was Ivy's heart. That ended the conversation. Marin left the ICU waiting area at 3:06 a.m. She didn't kiss Ivy goodbye. She didn't ask if I needed anything. She walked out with her badge swinging against her blazer and her phone pressed to her ear. I already knew who. She was calling him again at 6:15 a.m. While Ivy slept, I opened our household finance dashboard. 4 years I'd kept things simple. Marin's salary was hers. My consulting income covered the mortgage, Ivy's medical gap costs, insurance premiums, house staff twice a month, her parents' condo subsidy, her brother's car payment, and the credit card Marin used for work dinners that somehow always included Julian whenever he was in town. I'd let it continue because fighting over money felt small compared to keeping peace around a sick child. But peace built on one person's silence isn't peace. It's storage. And storage eventually fills. I canceled Marin's authorized user card first. Then I stopped the automatic transfer to her parents' mortgage account. Then I emailed my accountant. Effective immediately, suspend all recurring payments to accounts associated with Leonard and Celia Ardent. For the auto loan ending in 4419 under Travis Ardent, provide a full 12-month summary of payments made. Marin's maiden name was Ardent. It suited them. Her family burned through whatever came near. At 6:42, Celia Ardent called. I let it ring. She called again. Then Marin called. I answered because Ivy was still asleep and I wanted the record. Did you cut off my parents' mortgage? Marin demanded. Good morning to you too, Rowan. My mother is hysterical. The bank notified them the scheduled payment was canceled. Yes. You can't do that. I can stop paying bills I'm not legally required to pay. You're punishing my family because you're angry. No, I'm correcting a mistake. I thought I was supporting family. Last night clarified who you consider family. She made a sharp sound. My parents had nothing to do with this. Your mother called me 27 times last month asking me to sponsor a table at the hospital gala so you could impress the board. Your brother drives a car I pay for. Your father lives in a condo I helped refinance. They've enjoyed my resources while calling me difficult whenever I asked for boundaries. That's not fair. You keep using that word as if fairness survived the night. Her breathing grew uneven. Please don't make decisions while you're emotional. I made them after reviewing bank records. A pause. Bank records. Yes, Rowan, there are charges I don't recognize. Dinners, hotel lounge meetings, vendor events. Julian's company appears on 3 reimbursements routed through your department. I lowered my voice. Do not dig into that. That was the wrong thing to say. I sat straighter. Why? Because you don't understand hospital purchasing. I understand enough to ask why my household card covered dinner for my wife, her ex-boyfriend, and 2 hospital procurement staff. Those were professional meetings. Then the hospital can reimburse them. Rowan, I am warning you. No, I said. You're panicking. She went silent. Outside the ICU, the morning shift began. Shoes squeaked. Monitors chimed. Coffee machines clicked. The world kept functioning with brutal indifference. I looked at my daughter. Then I said, Marin, you get one chance to tell me the truth. Did Julian ask you to change Ivy's bed assignment before the hospital called me? She didn't answer fast enough. That was answer enough, Rowan, she whispered. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No, I said. It was supposed to happen before I arrived. I ended the call. At 7:03, an email arrived from Celeste. Subject: Urgent, Board. The secretary had acknowledged the preservation request. An emergency review was likely that morning. Below it, one more line. Also, Julian Voss's company has active vendor ties to St. Aurelia. That changes everything. I read the message, then looked at Ivy sleeping under wires and white blankets. By morning, this was no longer only a marriage ending. It was a hospital trying to decide how much truth it could survive. The first public collapse happened outside the family conference room at 8:20 a.m. By then, St. Aurelia Children's Hospital had fully woken up. Parents lined up at coffee carts. Residents moved in packs. Nurses changed shifts with the hard efficiency of people who knew emotions couldn't be allowed to slow down medication schedules. I hadn't slept. Marin had changed clothes. That angered me more than it should have. Sometime after leaving the ICU, she'd gone home, or to her office shower, and put on a cream blouse and a fresh blazer, returning composed. Ivy had spent the night connected to a monitor because of a decision Marin made, but Marin had found time to fix her hair. Julian arrived beside her. No badge, no official reason to be near the risk review, no shame. He wore a dark jacket and carried a paper coffee cup, looking like a grieving father pulled straight from a hospital brochure. Elaine saw him first. Her face hardened. Denise Calder came out of the conference room. Mr. Vale, Dr. Vale, the review team is ready for preliminary statements. Mr. Voss, you'll be interviewed separately. Julian placed a hand over his chest. Of course. I just want to make sure no one forgets my son is a patient too. No one has forgotten that, I said. He turned to me. Have they? Because you've been swinging money around since last night, like my boy stole something from yours. A few people looked over. Marin murmured, Julian, don't. But he did. Of course he did. He'd enjoyed Marin protecting him in private. Now he wanted witnesses. He wanted to be the wounded father under attack by the rich, jealous husband. He raised his voice slightly. I get that you're upset, Rowan, but punishing a sick child because your wife helped an old friend, that's low. The hallway slowed. A mother holding a toddler looked over. A resident stopped near the elevator. 2 nurses at the station went quiet. Marin closed her eyes briefly, as if she were tired of both of us. Rowan, please. Not here. I looked at her. The phrase had become a pattern. Not here. Not in the corridor. Not in front of people. Not while she still had something to protect. But Ivy had been in the hallway. Ivy had been exposed. Ivy had been treated like a problem to be managed. So I took out my phone. Julian smiled faintly. He thought I was going to shout. I pressed play. His voice came through clean and sharp from the recording I'd started the night before. Marin made the clinical call. Then, a second later, "Come on, Rowan. Be mature about this. We're talking about children." Then my own voice. "You don't get to decide what's necessary for my child." Then Marin. "Please don't embarrass everyone in the ICU corridor." Then me again. "My daughter is not a favor you can trade." The hallway went completely silent. Julian's face changed. "You recorded us? That's illegal." Denise, standing behind me, said, "Not in this corridor." Julian's eyes flicked to her. I kept my phone raised. "You wanted witnesses. Now you have them." I looked at the people gathered around us, then at Denise. "For everyone who heard Mr. Voss accuse me of punishing his son, I want the record clear. My daughter was assigned ICU bed 7 at 5:18 p.m. I arrived to find that bed occupied by Mr. Voss's son. My daughter's chart falsely stated that I agreed to delay her transfer. I did not. Her cardiologist did not approve the delay. Risk management is reviewing a manual override." Marin stepped forward. "This is a confidential hospital matter." It became a public accusation the moment Julian raised his voice. Julian pointed at me. "You think your money buys you the right to stand here and—" "No," I said. "I think your relationship with my wife made you think rules were optional." A nurse near the station covered her mouth. Julian's skin reddened. "You don't know anything about me. I know you texted me last night from an unknown number." He blinked. Marin looked at him. "What?" I opened the message and read it aloud. "Marin still answers when I call. You just pay the bills." A soft gasp moved through the hallway. Julian's face went pale. "That wasn't me." "Then you won't mind the number being traced." "Marin," he whispered. "Julian." He looked at her quickly. Too quickly. That look did more damage than any confession. Denise held out her hand. "Mr. Vale, please send that message to the evidence file." "Already done." Julian laughed, but it came out thin. "This is insane." "Marin, tell them." Everyone turned to her for a second. She had the chance I'd promised myself I would give her. One chance to tell the truth. She could have said, "I made a mistake." She could have said, "I crossed a line." She could have said, "I'm sorry. Ivy suffered because of my decision." Instead, she lifted her chin. Julian was scared. Any parent would be. Something in me settled. There it was. Even now, even with staff watching, even with the evidence sitting between us, her daughter upstairs, she still reached first for him. Elaine stepped out from behind the station. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "I was charge nurse last night. Ivy Vale's ICU bed was reserved before Nolan Voss was moved. The override came after Dr. Vale spoke with Mr. Voss near the east elevator." Marin turned on her. "Elaine." Elaine didn't back down. "I documented what I saw." Denise wrote again. Julian looked around as if the hallway had betrayed him personally. Dr. Sloan arrived with a folder in her hand. "And for the record, I did not approve Ivy's delay. I escalated her for ICU transfer due to cardiac instability." The mother with the toddler pulled her child closer. A resident stared at Marin like he'd never seen a title shrink so fast. Marin's voice lowered. "Priya, you know this is more complicated." "No," Dr. Sloan said. "It's serious. That's not the same as complicated." For the first time, Marin had no answer. And Julian made the mistake that finished him. He pointed toward the ICU doors. "Fine. If you want the truth, Rowan's been waiting for a reason to cut Marin down. He funds this place and expects everyone to bow. Maybe Ivy got the bed slower because staff are tired of his entitlement." The air changed. I didn't move. I didn't speak right away. Then I took one step closer. "My daughter," I said. Spent last night struggling to breathe because you wanted a bed that was already assigned. Do not ever use her name to protect your ego again." He opened his mouth. Denise interrupted. "Mr. Voss, you need to return to your son's unit. Security will escort you if necessary." "I'm not leaving." A security officer appeared at the far end of the hall. Julian looked at Marin. Marin. That single word said everything. He expected her to save him again. Marin looked at him, then at the staff, then at me. Her mouth trembled. "Julian, just go. For now." His expression hardened. For now. The softness vanished. The helpless father mask slipped, and underneath was a man furious that his old power had failed in front of an audience. He leaned close to her, though the hallway was too quiet for any privacy. "You promised me," he said. Marin's face went white. Denise looked up from her clipboard. "I saved that sentence in my head. You promised me it would matter later." Julian left with security walking beside him. No one spoke until the elevator doors closed. Then Denise turned to Marin. "Dr. Vale, pending further review, you are to have no involvement in pediatric access decisions related to Ivy Vale, Nolan Voss, or any patient connected to Mr. Voss. You'll surrender your access coordination privileges temporarily while we verify the system logs." Marin stared at her. "You can't suspend my access based on a hallway performance. This isn't a suspension of employment. It's a temporary limitation of privileges during review." "That's effectively the same thing." "No," Denise said. "It's the hospital protecting patients." Marin looked at me then. There was accusation in her eyes, but behind it something new had appeared, fear. Not fear of losing me. Not yet. Fear of losing the identity that made her untouchable. My phone buzzed again. "Celeste. Board chair notified. Emergency meeting likely tomorrow morning. Do not attend alone." I looked through the ICU doors toward the place where my daughter was sleeping. Then I looked at my wife. She had chosen Julian over Ivy in the dark. Now mourning was making everyone watch the cost. The hospital gala was supposed to be Marin's triumph. She'd talked about it for 6 months. St. Aurelia's annual charity dinner brought in donors, board members, physicians, local politicians, and enough polished smiles to make suffering look tasteful. This year, Marin was scheduled to give the keynote on pediatric access equity. That phrase tasted bitter now, access equity, at 3:30 p.m. While Ivy slept in ICU under Dr. Sloan's care, Celeste sat beside me in a quiet consultation room, reading the gala program on her tablet. "She's still listed as keynote speaker," Celeste said. "After last night, the hospital hasn't made a final decision. They may be hoping this stays contained." "It won't." Celeste looked at me over her glasses. "Before you go tonight, understand the line. You can announce the fund hold. You can reference compliance concerns. You can correct false public statements. Do not reveal protected patient information beyond your daughter's situation as her parent. And you need to be ready for them to paint you as emotional." "I am emotional." "Yes," she said. "But you are not uncontrolled. That difference matters." I looked through the glass panel at the ICU hall. Marin stood near the entrance, speaking to her mother. Celia Ardent had arrived wearing pearls and fury. She hadn't visited Ivy first. She'd gone straight to Marin and demanded to know why her mortgage payment had bounced. That told me everything I needed to know about my in-laws' order of concern. "They'll all be at the gala," I said. "Good," Celeste replied. I almost smiled. At 5:12 p.m. Ivy woke up enough to drink water. "Is Mommy mad at me?" she asked. I sat beside her, careful not to touch the wires. "No, sweetheart. Grown-up things are complicated." "Did I make trouble?" The question cut through me. "No," I said, firmer than I meant to. "You never make trouble by needing care. Never." She looked at the rabbit tucked under her arm. "Mommy says hospitals have to help the sickest kid first." "That's true. Was I not the sickest?" I took a slow breath. A child shouldn't have to measure her worth against another child's monitor. "The doctors are making sure the right decisions are made now," I said. "And I'm making sure no one forgets you." She nodded, too tired to ask more. At 6:40 p.m. I changed into the suit I kept in my office closet and drove to the gala with Celeste in the passenger seat. The ballroom at the Lermont Hotel glowed gold and white. Tall arrangements of lilies stood on every table. Screens showed smiling children with 4 poles, parents hugging doctors, recovery rooms funded by donors whose names appeared in discreet silver letters. The Vail Pediatric Recovery Fund's name appeared on 3 banners. I stopped at the entrance. Celeste followed my gaze. Still want to go in? Yes. The first person to approach me was Leonard Ardent, my father-in-law. He had the soft hands of a retired dentist and the moral spine of wet paper. His tuxedo fit perfectly, because I'd paid for it 2 Christmases ago. Rowan, he said in a low voice, this has gone far enough. Good evening, Leonard. You embarrassed Marin at her own hospital. Marin embarrassed herself. His jaw tightened. My daughter has dedicated her life to sick children. Except last night, when she forgot one of them was hers. He glanced around. Lower your voice. That family had one prayer and it was always the same. Lower your voice. Never fix the harm. Just lower your voice. Celia swept over before he could continue. How dare you come here after freezing the fund? Where is Ivy? I asked. Celia blinked. What? Your granddaughter. Did you visit her? This is not about. It is only about that. Her nostrils flared. Marin said Ivy is stable. Marin also said I agreed to delay her ICU transfer. Leonard looked sharply at Marin's table. Celia recovered faster. You're using a child's illness to punish your wife for having a past. Celeste stepped forward. Mrs. Ardent, I'd advise you to stop making defamatory statements in a room full of witnesses. Celia looked her up and down. And you're my attorney. That silenced her for half a second. Then Julian appeared. He shouldn't have come. Any intelligent man would have stayed away from a donor event connected to the hospital investigating him. But Julian loved stages. He believed sympathy worked better under chandeliers. Marin invited me, he said, before I even asked. Nolan's stable. I wanted to thank the donors. His eyes flicked to a banner with my fund's name. Especially you, Rowan. Marin came up behind him. She looked beautiful. That was the cruel thing. Cream dress, diamond studs, hair pinned back. The woman I'd married still existed in shape and voice. But the person wearing her face had spent the night defending another man while our daughter slept under machines. Rowan, she said, please don't do this tonight. Do what? You came with a lawyer's worth of trouble already at your side. You came with Julian. Her lips tightened. He's here as a parent. He's here because you still think I can be shamed into paying quietly. The ballroom lights dimmed before she could answer. A hospital development officer took the stage and welcomed everyone. Applause washed over the room. People found their seats. Celeste and I sat at the Vail Fund table, which Marin had arranged months ago, with her parents, 2 board members, and, to my surprise but not shock, Julian Voss. He sat 2 seats from my wife. Not beside his son. Not near the general parent guests. At my donor table. Celeste leaned toward me. They're bold. No, I said. They're used to me being polite. The program began with a video about children waiting for beds. It showed a recovery room funded by my foundation. Then a nurse spoke. Then a father thanked Saint Aurelia for saving his daughter's life. I listened without moving. Those stories were real. That was what made the betrayal worse. A system could be full of good people and still be damaged by one person who thought love, guilt, or status allowed exceptions. Then Marin walked to the stage. Applause rose. She looked smaller under the spotlight. Tonight, she began. We gather for every child who waits for care, every parent who sits awake beside a hospital bed, and every family who trusts us to choose based on need, not privilege. Celeste's pen stopped moving. I looked at Marin. She didn't look at me. We believe no child should be pushed aside because another family has more money, more influence, or a louder voice. Julian clapped first. That was when I stood. The chair legs scraped against the floor. Several heads turned. Marin faltered for half a second. Rowan, I walked toward the stage. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady. The development officer moved as if to intercept me, but Celeste stood too. "Mr. Vale is a scheduled principal donor," she said clearly. "He has the right to address the fund bearing his name. That wasn't exactly on the program, but money creates doors even when grief doesn't." The officer hesitated, then handed me a microphone with the expression of a man watching a glass fall in slow motion. I stood below the stage, not on it. Marin looked down at me. I looked back. "You said no child should be pushed aside because of influence." "I agree." The ballroom fell silent. "That's why the Vale Pediatric Recovery Fund's next disbursement has been placed on compliance hold." A murmur moved through the tables. Marin's face went pale. Celia whispered, "Oh my God!" "The fund's terms are restricted," I continued. "They support pediatric recovery capacity, cardiac monitoring, and family care access. They do not support manual overrides made through personal relationships. They do not support false parental consent notes. They do not support any system in which a child's reserved ICU bed can be reassigned after a private request from a vendor-connected parent." Julian stood. "This is outrageous." I turned toward him. "Sit down." He didn't, so I lifted the printed folder Celeste had prepared. "I have preserved messages from you asking my wife to secure a bed. I have a text from an unknown number taunting me that my wife still answers when you call. I have a chart note falsely stating I agreed to delay my daughter's ICU transfer. I have written confirmation from her cardiologist that she did not approve that delay." Marin whispered into her microphone, "Rowan, please." Caught. Everyone heard. For once, her plea didn't work. I looked around the ballroom. This is not an attack on St. Aurelia's nurses. One of them protected my daughter when people with more power failed her. This is not an attack on sick children. My daughter is one. This is an insistence that donor money and hospital authority cannot become tools for old lovers to trade favors. A board member at the front table leaned toward another. Julian's chair knocked backward as he stood fully. "You're insane. Marin, tell them this is a domestic issue." Marin stood frozen on the stage. The board chair, a silver-haired woman named Eleanor Pike, rose from the front table. "Mr. Voss," she said, "you will not address Dr. Vale from the floor." Her voice was quiet, but the room obeyed. She turned to me. "Mr. Vale, the board has received your counsel's preservation letter, based on what you've stated tonight and what risk management has already reported. We will convene an emergency board session tomorrow morning." Marin gripped the podium. "Eleanor, I can explain." The board chair looked up at her. "I hope so," she said. "For your sake, and the hospital's." The room changed after that. It wasn't dramatic shouting. It was worse. People whispered. A donor who'd hugged Marin at the entrance avoided her eyes. A surgeon who used to praise her access reforms turned away. Celia sat rigid, pearls trembling at her throat. Leonard stared at the table as if numbers were finally adding up. Julian reached for Marin's hand. She pulled away. Too late. Everyone saw. For the first time, she'd chosen not to touch him. For the first time, it didn't matter. I handed the microphone back. Celeste walked beside me toward the exit. Marin came after us, heels clicking fast against the marble lobby. "Rowan." I stopped under the chandelier. She reached me, breathless. "You humiliated me." I looked at her. "I told the truth. At my own gala, an event where you used children waiting for beds as a speech, while our daughter spent last night waiting because of you." Her eyes filled. "I made one mistake." "No. You made a choice. The mistake was thinking I'd keep paying for the room where you lied about it." Behind her, Julian appeared near the ballroom doors. He didn't come closer for once. He looked unsure. Marin followed my gaze. Something in her face flickered, not regret, recognition. Maybe she was finally beginning to see that the man she'd protected didn't intend to stand beside her when standing cost him something. My phone buzzed. Denise called her. "Mr. Vale, the board has requested your attendance at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Council may attend. Please bring any evidence you're prepared to submit." I showed the message to Marin. Her lips parted. By morning, the hospital wouldn't be asking whether I was overreacting. It would be asking what else my wife had hidden. I returned to the hospital just before 10 o'clock that night. The gala was probably still going. Someone still eating overcooked salmon under gold lights. Someone still trying to salvage donor confidence with careful phrases and nervous laughter. I walked back into the ICU wearing the same suit, carrying a paper bag with clean clothes, Ivy's favorite blanket, and a small container of chicken soup I knew she'd barely sip but always asked for after a bad episode. Maren wasn't there. I hated that I noticed. I hated more that Ivy noticed too. She woke around 10:40, blinking slowly at the monitor light. I stood and moved close. "Hey, Firefly." Her lips curved. I'd called her that since she was 3, after she told me her heart monitor sounded like tiny bugs blinking in the dark. "Daddy," she said. "Did Mom go home?" I sat beside her. She had meetings. Because of me? Because of the bed. I took her hand carefully, the 4-line taped to the back of it. "Some adults are talking about hospital decisions." She watched my face with the terrifying focus of a child used to reading adults for danger. "Mom was with that man," she whispered. I went still. "What man?" "The one from before. The one who came to our house when you were in Seattle." My chest tightened. "When was that?" She thought for a moment. "The night Mom made pasta but burned it. He brought cupcakes." She said he was an old friend. Julian had been in my house. Maren had never told me. "What did he do?" "He talked about his son." Mom cried. Then they got quiet when I came downstairs. I kept my face calm. "Did he come more than once? 2 times, maybe 3? A child shouldn't have to answer those questions, but I needed to know. She nodded slowly. I kissed her fingers. "Thank you for telling me. You didn't do anything wrong." "Are you mad?" "Yes," I said honestly. "But not at you. Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The words sat between us like a medical instrument left on a tray. I could have lied. Parents lie to protect children. But sometimes lies only make the floor less steady when it finally breaks. "I don't know exactly what happens next," I said. "But I know I'm going to keep you safe." She looked toward the glass wall. "Mom didn't come when I called." "I know. I called her from the hallway. Nurse Elaine said she was busy." I closed my eyes. In my head, the night rearranged itself. Ivy on a transport bed. Maren with her hand on Julian's shoulder. Julian's son in bed 7. My daughter calling for her mother while her mother explained another child's care to another man. When I opened my eyes, Ivy was watching me. "Daddy, I'm here. Will you stay? All night? Even if Mom gets mad," I said. I smiled without humor. "Especially then." Dr. Sloan came in at 11:15 with good news and not good news. Ivy's rhythm had stabilized, but the delay had increased her stress markers, and she needed another full night of ICU monitoring. There was no permanent damage they could identify yet, but Dr. Sloan refused to soften what had happened. "She should have been here sooner," she said. Maren arrived as Dr. Sloan finished. She changed again, jeans and a sweater this time. Without the blazer and the gala polish, she looked more like the woman who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during Ivy's early surgeries. For 1 second, memory tried to speak for her. Then Ivy turned her face toward the wall. Maren noticed. Her eyes filled instantly. "Ivy." Ivy didn't answer. Maren stepped closer to the bed. "Baby, I'm sorry I wasn't here when you woke up." Ivy's voice was small. "You were with Nolan's dad." Maren froze. Dr. Sloan looked down at her tablet. "I didn't move Ivy," Maren whispered. "Nolan was very sick. So was I." Maren's mouth opened, but no words came. That was the first honest silence she'd given us. She reached for Ivy's blanket. Ivy pulled it closer to herself. Maren's hand stopped in midair. "Ivy," she said, voice breaking. "I love you more than anything." Ivy still faced the wall. "Then why did Daddy come first?" Maren looked at me as if I'd taught Ivy the question. I shook my head once. "No, that one was hers." Dr. Sloan cleared her throat. "I'll come back in a few minutes." She left. Maren's tears fell now. But Ivy didn't turn around. "Rowan," Marin whispered. "Please help me." That almost made me angry enough to laugh. Now she wanted my help. Not when Ivy was in the hallway. Not when Julian was challenging me. Not when the false consent note was entered. Now, with our daughter's disappointment looking at her from a hospital bed, she wanted me to soften the truth. "No," I said. Her head snapped toward me. "No, you need to answer her yourself." Marin pressed a hand to her chest. "I made a bad call. I thought she'd be okay for a little while." Ivy's shoulders moved under the blanket. "You didn't come when I called." "I know. I was trying to fix things with him." Marin looked wrecked. Ivy finally turned. Her eyes were wet, but her voice had a hard edge I'd never heard from her before. "Did you pick him because you liked him first?" Marin covered her mouth. That question destroyed whatever defense she had left. I stood, because if I'd stayed seated, I might have said something that belonged in a courtroom, not beside my child's bed. "Marin," I said quietly, "you need to leave for tonight." "No." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving my daughter. You left her last night." "That's cruel." "It's true. I have rights, and I've already asked Celeste to file for temporary medical decision protection." Her tears stopped. "What? You will not be allowed to make unilateral decisions about Ivy's care while this investigation is active. You can't do that." "I can, given the false consent note and the conflict of interest. Celeste thinks we have grounds." Marin looked at Ivy, then at me. "You're taking my daughter from me. I'm protecting her from decisions you've already made. She's my child. She is not a possession you remember only when the consequences arrive." Her face twisted. "I hate you right now." I nodded. "That may be the most honest thing you've said all day." Ivy made a small sound. Marin heard it and stepped back, horrified at herself. "Ivy, no. Baby, I didn't mean..." "Leave," Ivy whispered. Marin stared at her. The monitor beeped steadily. No one moved. Then Marin turned and walked out, one hand over her mouth. Through the glass, I watched her stop in the corridor, bend forward like she was going to be sick, then straighten when her phone rang. She looked at the screen. I knew she'd answer. That was the moment I stopped feeling even the last ache of hesitation. I stepped outside and took a photo through the glass reflection. Marin in the corridor, phone to her ear, our daughter visible behind her through the ICU window. It wasn't dramatic evidence. It wasn't a legal bombshell. But it was the whole story in one frame. A mother outside her child's room, still answering the man who'd helped put her there. At 12:03 a.m., Celeste confirmed the emergency family court petition would be filed at opening. At 12:11, my accountant sent the payment summary for the Ardent family. Over 12 months, I had paid $96,420 toward Marin's family obligations. Mortgage subsidy, car payment, medical bills, credit cards, and a temporary business loan to her brother that had never been repaid. I looked at the numbers, then at Ivy resource by resource. I had built a life around people who now called me cruel for refusing to let my daughter be sacrificed. At 12:30, I sent one more instruction. Prepare full separation accounting. Include marital assets, family support payments, vehicle titles, insurance beneficiaries, and trust protections for Ivy. Then I turned my phone face down. Ivy was asleep again. I sat in the dim room with one hand on the bed rail. The board meeting was 8 hours away by then. Marin would learn that losing my trust was only the first door closing. Marin's family summoned me the way people summon someone they still think works for them. Celia sent the message at 6:10 the next evening, after the board's emergency session had been scheduled, but before its outcome was public. Family dinner at our house. 7:30. You and Marin will settle this like adults. No lawyers, no drama. Think of Ivy. No lawyers, no drama. Think of Ivy. That last line almost made me break my phone in half. I showed it to Celeste. She laughed once. They really do believe tone is a legal strategy. Should I go? Do you want witnesses outside the hospital? Yes. Then go. Record if it's legal in your state. Don't threaten. State facts. And don't eat anything you didn't watch them pour. I'm serious. So am I. Ivy was stable enough for me to leave for 2 hours. Dr. Sloan promised to call if anything changed. Elaine, off shift but somehow still knowing everything, squeezed my shoulder before I left. Don't let them make you feel crazy. I won't, I said. The Ardents lived in a condo with river views they couldn't afford. I'd helped them refinance it 2 years earlier, after Leonard forgot about a balloon payment. Marin had cried in our kitchen back then and said, "They're my parents, Rowan. I can't let them lose their home." So I helped. That was before I understood that, in their family, help became proof that you owed more. When I arrived, Julian's car was parked across the street. I stood beside my own car for a moment, looking at it. Then I smiled, of course, and pressed record before I knocked. Celia opened the door wearing an expression of righteous injury. Finally, she looked past me. "Where is your lawyer?" "Not here." "Good. Maybe now you can speak like a husband instead of a hostile witness." I stepped inside. The dining table was set for 7. Celia, Leonard, Marin, her brother Travis, Travis's wife, Julian, and me. Julian sat at the far end, like a man invited to judge a marriage he'd helped damage. Marin stood when she saw me. I didn't know he was coming. Julian gave her a wounded look. "Your mother invited me. I deserve to defend myself." "Defend yourself from what?" I asked. "Your own texts." Celia slammed a serving spoon onto the table. "Enough. You've humiliated this family for 2 days. You froze hospital money. You cut off our mortgage payment. You made Marin cry in front of her colleagues. And now you come into my home with that attitude." "Your home," I said, looking around the condo. Interesting phrase. Leonard's face reddened. He knew what was coming before anyone else did. Celia crossed her arms. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means I've paid 28 months of mortgage support for this condo." Travis scoffed. "Here we go. Rowan and his spreadsheet." I looked at him. "I also paid 11 months of your car loan." His smile vanished. His wife stared at him. "You told me your mother helped with that." Celia snapped. "This is not about money." "It's partly about money," I said, "because all of you keep accusing me of using resources as punishment, when the truth is you treated my resources as family property, until I finally asked what kind of family lets my daughter sit in a hallway." Marin whispered, "Rowan." I turned to her. "Did you know Julian would be here?" "No." Julian leaned back. "Don't interrogate her." I looked at him. "You're in a home partly paid for by me, sitting at a table where my wife's family invited you to discuss my marriage, after you used her to get access to an ICU bed reserved for my daughter. You do not get to set the rules here." His face tightened. Celia pointed at me. "Julian's son was sick. So was Ivy. Marin made a medical decision. Marin made a conflict of interest decision." Leonard finally spoke. "Rowan, I think everyone agrees mistakes were made." "No," I said. "That sentence is how cowards bury responsibility." The room went still. Leonard looked down. I placed a folder on the table. Celia stared at it like it was a snake. "What is that?" "Payment records. Mortgage subsidies, car loan payments, credit card transfers, medical bills, and the promissory note Travis signed and never repaid." Travis stood. "You brought paperwork to dinner? This is pathetic." I opened the folder and slid one page toward his wife. "Your husband borrowed $18,000 from me for a business equipment purchase. The equipment was never purchased. The repayment date passed 7 months ago." She picked up the paper slowly. "Travis." He glared at me. "You're blowing up my marriage now, too?" "No. I'm returning ownership." Marin sat down as if her legs had weakened. Celia reached for the folder. I placed my hand on it. "I'm not finished." Her eyes burned. "You think money makes you better than us?" "No. I think my money made it easier for you to ignore what kind of man I was, until I stopped paying." Julian laughed softly. "There it is. The real Rowan. Generous as long as everyone obeys." I turned to him. "You sent me a message saying Marin still answers when you call." I told you that wasn't me. I pulled out another sheet. My attorney traced the number to a prepaid account, purchased with a card linked to Voss Medical Solutions. His face went blank. Marin looked at him. Julian. He shook his head. That doesn't prove I sent it. No, I said. It proves you lied when you acted shocked. Celia grabbed her wine glass. This is ridiculous. I placed the next page down. These are screenshots of Julian asking Marin to secure the cardiac bed. These are timestamps from the hospital access system. This is the chart note falsely stating I agreed to delay Ivy's transfer. Marin's father reached for the page. His hands trembled. He read slowly, then looked at Marin. You put Rowan's consent in the chart. Marin's eyes filled. I didn't write it myself. But you allowed it, Leonard said, his voice hoarse. She looked away. For the first time since I'd known him, Leonard didn't look weak. He looked ashamed. Celia refused to read it. Marin was trying to save a child. She risked her own. That is a disgusting thing to say. It's a disgusting thing to have done. Marin stood abruptly. I can't do this. Sit down, Leonard said. Everyone turned to him. Celia blinked. Leonard. He kept his eyes on Marin. Did you change the bed assignment? Marin's face crumpled. Dad. Did you? He whispered. Yes. The room didn't explode. Collapsed. Travis sat back down. His wife covered her mouth. Celia stared at Marin like the confession itself was a betrayal of the family brand. Julian stood. This is being twisted. Marin made a compassionate decision. I looked at him. Then why did you say she promised you? His expression flickered. Leonard looked up. Promised. I played the hallway audio from that morning. Julian's voice filled the dining room. You promised me. Marin shut her eyes. Celia slowly sat down. The power in the room had moved. I could feel it. For 2 days, they treated me like an angry husband. Now the evidence sat between the plates and wine glasses, ordinary, undeniable. Julian grabbed his coat. I'm not staying for this ambush. You probably shouldn't have come to our family dinner, man, Travis muttered. Julian turned on him. Don't act like you weren't happy when my company sponsored your golf event. That was new. Travis froze. I looked at Celia. Anything else this family accepted from him while I paid the bills? No one answered. Julian headed for the door. I spoke before he reached it. One more thing. Effective 30 days from today, the condo subsidy ends permanently. The apartment Travis uses for his weekend business storage is in my name. Vacate it by the end of the month. The car payment is done. Any further requests go through attorneys. Celia shot to her feet. You can't throw family away like trash. I looked at Marin. She was crying silently now. I didn't, I said. Your daughter did. She just expected me to keep paying for the cleanup. Julian opened the door before leaving. He looked at Marin. You need to fix this. Not I'm sorry. Not I'll help. You need to fix this. Marin heard it. So did everyone else. The door closed behind him. For the first time, Marin looked less like a woman defending an old love and more like a woman realizing she'd mistaken dependency for devotion. I picked up my folder. Celia's voice shook. Rowan, please. The mortgage. I looked at her. There it was, the first please from a woman who'd never used the word except as a command in costume. No, I said. Then I left the Ardent condo and drove back to my daughter. The family table stayed broken behind me. The board meeting waited ahead. The boardroom at St. Aurelia Children's Hospital was too bright for lies. Sunlight came through floor-to-ceiling windows and spread across a long white table. No flowers, no gala lights, no photographs of smiling children. Just water glasses, tablets, legal pads, and 12 people who understood that public trust is easier to lose than funding. Marin sat on one side of the table with hospital counsel. Julian sat 3 chairs away, separate from her, with his own attorney. That separation was new. It told me he'd already begun saving himself. Celeste sat beside me. I hadn't slept more than an hour in 2 days, but I felt clearer than I had in years. Board Chair Eleanor Pike opened the meeting at 8:03 a.m. This emergency session concerns possible conflict of interest, improper access override, donor restriction concerns, and falsification or misuse of parental consent language in the transfer of pediatric patient Ivy Vale on Tuesday evening. Marin flinched at our daughter's name. Julian looked bored. That was his mistake, Eleanor noticed. Denise Calder presented first. She didn't dramatize. She didn't need to. At 5:18 p.m., ICU bed 7 was reserved for Ivy Vale based on cardiology escalation. At 5:46 p.m., the bed assignment was manually overridden. At 5:51 p.m., Julian Voss was assigned to bed 7. At 5:53 p.m., a note appeared in Ivy Vale's chart stating, "Father agreed to delay ICU transfer pending bed availability. We have no call recording, portal message, or staff witness confirming father consent." A board member asked, "Who entered the note?" Denise glanced down. An access coordinator, Melissa Grant, entered it under standard template language. She states she was directed by Dr. Vale, who told her the father would agree once contacted. Marin closed her eyes. Celeste's pen moved. Denise continued. System logs show Dr. Vale approved the override using her director credentials. Marin's attorney leaned forward. Dr. Vale approved a resource allocation under emergent pressure, not a personal favor. Dr. Sloan spoke next. She wore no makeup. Her voice was steady. I recommended ICU transfer for Ivy Vale due to cardiac instability. I was not consulted before the reserved bed was reassigned. In my clinical judgment, the delay increased risk. Marin looked at her. Dr. Sloan didn't look back. I am here as Ivy's physician. Those 6 words landed hard. Not as Marin's colleague. Not as a hospital politician. As the doctor of a child whose bed had been taken. Eleanor turned to Julian. Mr. Voss, did you contact Dr. Vale prior to your son's assignment? His attorney answered. Mr. Voss was a frightened parent seeking help for his child. Any allocation decision was the hospital's. Eleanor looked at Julian. That was not my question. Julian sat up. I contacted Marin because I trusted her. Did you ask her to secure an ICU bed? I asked for help. Did you know Ivy Vale was assigned bed 7? He hesitated. The room saw it. No, he said. Celeste slid a printed screenshot across the table. Eleanor read it silently, then aloud. Marin. Ivy is on the list for bed 7. Julian. She's stable though, right? Julian's attorney objected immediately. We haven't verified the source of these screenshots. We also have metadata from the recipient device, Celeste said, and a preservation request for Dr. Vale's deleted messages. The hospital can verify through its own device management, if applicable. Marin's attorney turned toward her. Deleted messages? Marin's face went pale. Eleanor asked, Dr. Vale, did you delete messages with Mr. Voss relevant to this event? Yes, Marin whispered. Why? Marin looked at me for 1 second. I saw her searching for the old version of me, the one who'd give her a small nod, a signal, a way out, the one who'd absorb the embarrassment so she could recover. I gave her nothing. She looked back at Eleanor. Because I knew they'd look improper. Eleanor's expression hardened. Were they improper? Marin's lips trembled. Yes. Julian turned sharply. Marin. She didn't look at him. A board member near the end of the table asked, What is Mr. Voss's relationship to St. Aurelia? Beyond being a patient's father? Denise answered, Voss Medical Solutions is an approved vendor for monitoring accessories and respiratory transport kits. Another board member frowned. Did Dr. Vale participate in vendor discussions involving Voss Medical Solutions? Denise looked at her notes. Preliminary records indicate she attended 3 dinners with procurement staff and Mr. Voss, classified under pediatric access outreach. I spoke then. Those dinners were charged to a household card in my name. Marin's attorney said quickly, This is outside the scope of the ICU transfer. Eleanor disagreed. It may relate to undisclosed conflicts. Celeste placed copies of the credit card statements on the table. Mr. Vale is prepared to provide these records. He's also prepared to cooperate with any investigation into whether donor reporting or hospital access programs were used to support vendor relationships. Julian leaned back. This is a witch hunt. I looked at him. No. A witch hunt searches for imaginary guilt. You left receipts. A few eyes moved toward me, then away. Eleanor asked Denise to play the hallway recording. Julian's voice filled the boardroom. Marin made the clinical call. Then, come on, Rowan. Be mature about this. We're talking about children. Then my own voice. My daughter is not a favor you can trade. Then Marin. Please don't embarrass me. Everyone in the ICU corridor. Then, later, Julian again. You promised me. When the recording ended, the silence was different from the hallway silence. The hallway had been shock. This was calculation. People in the boardroom weren't only reacting to betrayal, they were measuring liability, governance, donor trust, press exposure, patient safety, and the fact that a director had used her authority in a case involving her own child and her former lover. Eleanor folded her hands. Dr. Vale, did you promise Mr. Voss an ICU bed? Marin's answer came out barely audible. I told him I would try to help. Did you disclose your personal relationship with him when participating in access decisions involving his child? No. Did you recuse yourself from decisions involving your own daughter? No. Did you allow a chart note to suggest her father consented when he had not? Marin's eyes closed. Yes. Julian pushed back his chair. This is ridiculous. She's taking all the blame because her husband scared her. Marin looked at him. Then really looked. Something passed across her face that I had waited too long to see. Disgust. You told me Nolan had no monitoring option, she said. Julian froze. You told me he was being ignored. You told me the ER team refused to escalate. His attorney touched his arm. Do not respond. But Julian was angry now, and angry men forget legal advice when their control slips. You knew what I needed, he snapped. Don't act like I forced you. You wanted to help me. Marin recoiled. There it was, the mask falling off in front of the board. He didn't love her. He hadn't even protected her. He'd used her, and now that the room had turned dangerous, he was handing her the knife and pointing to her fingerprints. Eleanor stood. We'll recess for 15 minutes. No one moved until she left. Marin turned toward me, eyes wet. Rowan. I stood too. Don't. Please. Not here. The phrase hit her. She recognized it. I walked out with Celeste into the corridor. She exhaled. That went badly for her. For which one? Both. Your wife has a license issue now. Julian has a vendor issue. The hospital has a governance issue. Her expression softened. And Ivy has a father who acted fast enough. 15 minutes became 40 before we were called back in. Marin's hands were folded tightly in her lap. Julian no longer looked bored. His attorney had whispered something to him, and for once he was listening. Eleanor read the board's preliminary decision. Effective immediately, Dr. Marin Vale is removed from her role as Pediatric Access Director pending completion of investigation. Her access coordination privileges are suspended. She is prohibited from involvement in patient allocation decisions. The hospital will self-report potential documentation irregularities, as advised by counsel. Marin made a sound like air leaving her chest. St. Aurelia will suspend all new purchasing discussions involving Voss Medical Solutions pending conflict review. Mr. Voss is prohibited from non-patient area access beyond what's necessary for his son's care. Security will enforce it. Julian's face turned red. You can't ban me from hospital areas where my son... You may visit your son, Eleanor said. You may not use our facility as a sales floor or a personal network. Then she looked at me. Mr. Vale will provide a written response to your fund's compliance concerns within 48 hours. We understand the hold on disbursement will remain. It will. Marin covered her face. I didn't look away. I needed to see it. Not because I wanted her destroyed, but because I needed my mind to understand what my heart had been slow to accept. Consequences had arrived. After the meeting, Marin followed me to the parking garage. She looked smaller in daylight. Rowan. she said, voice shaking. Julian lied to me. I unlocked my car. I know. He made it sound like Nolan was being abandoned. I opened the door. He used me. I looked at her over the roof of the car. No, Marin. He found the part of you that was willing to use us. She sobbed once. I didn't mean for Ivy to be hurt. But you accepted the risk. You thought you could fix it before I arrived. That is not better, I said. She wrapped her arms around herself. What happens now? Now I go back to our daughter. I got into the car. You should call your lawyer. Marin learned who Julian was the way most people learn the truth about someone they defended too long. Publicly, painfully, and after everyone else had stopped being surprised. It began with an email from St. Aurelia Compliance to Celeste. Voss Medical Solutions had been under preliminary review for 6 weeks before the ICU incident. 3 invoices contained pricing irregularities. 2 procurement staff members had flagged unusual pressure from a senior pediatric access leader to consider Voss products for a monitoring expansion. 1 staff member had documented that Julian Voss repeatedly cited his personal relationship with Dr. Vale as evidence he understood the hospital's needs. Celeste forwarded it to me with 1 line. He was using her name before he used her badge. I was sitting beside Ivy when I read it. She was eating half a popsicle and watching cartoons with no sound. Her color had improved. The monitor still watched over her, but the room no longer felt like it was holding its breath. Good news? She asked. Complicated news. That means grown-up bad news. I smiled. She offered me the rest of her popsicle, purple, melting down the stick. No thanks. You need the food. So do you. She shrugged. I ate 3 bites. Heroic, she said and smiled. That smile was worth more than every fund, house, apology, and public victory combined. At noon, Marin asked to visit. Ivy didn't say no. She didn't say yes either. She just looked at me and asked, "Will you stay?" Marin entered like someone approaching a wild animal. No blazer, no badge, no authority. Just a mother carrying a small bag from the hospital gift shop. I brought you the fox socks, she said softly. Ivy looked at the bag. Thank you. Marin placed it on the chair, not the bed. Progress, I thought bitterly. She was learning consent from an 8-year-old. Ivy, Marin said. I am so sorry. Ivy looked at the cartoon. I made a terrible choice. I thought I was helping someone, but I hurt you. I should have come when you called. I should have chosen you first. Ivy's chin trembled. Daddy did, she said. Marin's face crumpled. Yes, she whispered. Daddy did. That was the first real apology. I didn't hate her for it. Still didn't change anything. After 10 minutes, Ivy grew tired. Marin left without touching her. Outside the room, she stopped beside me. Thank you for letting me see her. She allowed it. Marin nodded, swallowing. I know. I almost walked away. Then she said, Julian's company is under review. I turned. How do you know? Eleanor called. They're questioning every procurement touch point. He told them I pushed him into meetings. Her laugh broke. He said I was obsessed with helping him. He's protecting himself. He told me I was the only person he trusted. He trusted your access. She closed her eyes. I know that now. Do you? Her eyes opened. The question angered her. Good. Anger was closer to honesty than tears. I am losing everything. No. You're meeting what you chose. You think I wanted this? I think you wanted to feel needed by him and safe with me at the same time. She stared at me. I kept going, because the truth had been sharpening itself for 2 days. You wanted Julian to call you first. You wanted to be the person who could save his son. You wanted to believe that made you compassionate, not disloyal. And you wanted me to stay the husband who paid the mortgage, sat beside Ivy, defended your reputation, and understood after you explained. She looked away. Tell me I'm wrong. She said nothing. My phone buzzed. Celeste again. Temporary custody filing accepted. Hearing tomorrow afternoon. Also filing marital asset preservation today. Do not allow her access to financial documents without counsel. Marin saw my expression. What now? Court. For medical decision authority and temporary custody terms. Rowan, no. She needs both parents. She'd needed both parents Tuesday night. Maren grabbed my sleeve. I looked at her hand until she let go. Please, she said. I am still her mother, and I am still the parent who did not falsify consent. Tears filled her eyes again, but I was past being moved by tears after watching my daughter fight for air. I'll fight, she said, voice shaking. I know. I won't let you erase me. I'm not trying to erase you. I'm making sure you can't endanger her to prove something to another man again. She flinched. That is not fair. There's that word. Her mouth closed. At 4 p.m. I met Celeste at her office. She'd already built the first binder, one tab for hospital records, one for messages, one for finances, one for Ivy's medical timeline, one for Maren's family support payments, one for Julian and Voss medical solutions. Divorce petition? She asked. I looked at the last tab. There are choices you make in a second because they were actually made over years. I thought of Maren telling Ivy she'd try to make it to the school play, then missing it because Julian had called about a vendor emergency. I thought of her mother rolling her eyes when I asked them not to bring flowers into Ivy's room after surgery. I thought of Julian's message, you just pay the bills. Maybe I'd needed the ICU hallway to see the full shape of it. Yes, I said. File it. Celeste didn't ask if I was sure. She had the respect to know certainty when she heard it. That evening, Maren called 11 times. I answered none of them. Then she texted, "Please don't do this through lawyers. We are not those people." I typed back once. "We became those people when you put false consent in our daughter's chart." She didn't respond for 8 minutes. Then, "I can fix it." I looked at Ivy, asleep in the chair beside her bed, fox socks on her feet. I wrote back, "No, you can face it." At 9:30 p.m. Julian called. I almost ignored it. Then I answered on speaker, remembering Celeste's advice. Let people talk when they're desperate. "Rowan, we need to stop this," he said. Maren got emotional. "She's making me sound like the villain because she's scared of losing you." Interesting. I never asked her to hurt Ivy. You asked her to secure a bed you knew was assigned to Ivy. He exhaled. Parents do crazy things when their kids are sick. Apparently so. You think you're better than me. Yes. Silence. Then his voice dropped. Careful. If I go down, Maren goes down harder. You really want your daughter's mother ruined? There it was again, the hostage logic. Protect the guilty or hurt the child. I leaned back. Julian, you made one mistake. What's that? You still think Maren is my weakness. I ended the call, then forwarded the recording to Celeste. The next morning, Maren was served with the divorce petition at 8:05. Julian was served with a subpoena request at 8:32. And Ivy, who had slept through both, woke up asking for pancakes. That was the only request that mattered. Family court smelled like paper, coffee, and old arguments. Maren arrived with her lawyer and her parents. Celia wore black, as if attending a funeral for her own comfort. Leonard looked older than he had 2 days before. Travis wasn't there. Maybe his wife had finally asked too many questions. I arrived with Celeste and a folder I wished I'd never needed. The hearing was temporary, not final. Celeste had explained that 3 times. Temporary medical decision authority. Temporary custody arrangement while the divorce and hospital investigations proceeded. Temporary orders, pending fuller review. But temporary can still decide whether a child sleeps safely. Maren saw me in the hallway outside the courtroom. She took 1 step toward me. "Not without counsel," Celeste said. Maren stopped, her face hardening with humiliation. "You really won't speak to me alone?" "No," I said. Celia hissed. "Coward." "Celia, stop," Leonard said. She turned on him. "Our daughter is being attacked and you want me to stop?" "Our granddaughter was in the ICU," he said. Celia looked shocked, as if he'd slapped her. For once, I felt something close to pity for Leonard. Weak men often look kind until kindness requires opposition. He'd finally found a small piece of spine, but late courage rarely repairs early silence. The courtroom was small. No jury, no drama beyond the kind people carry in their own bodies. Judge Helena Morris read the file for several minutes before looking up. This is a temporary matter concerning minor child Ivy Vale, age 8, with a complex cardiac history. Petitioner seeks temporary primary physical custody and sole medical decision-making authority, pending investigation into alleged hospital access misconduct involving respondent Dr. Marin Vale. Marin's shoulders tightened at the word respondent. Celeste presented first. She didn't call Marin evil. She didn't need to. She built a timeline. 5:18 p.m. ICU bed reserved. 5:46 p.m. Manual override. 5:53 p.m. False father consent note. Father's arrival. Child found in the hallway. Cardiologist's objection. Risk management's intervention. Board action removing Marin from her pediatric access role. Pending investigation. Then Celeste played Julian's call from the night before. If I go down, Marin goes down harder. You really want your daughter's mother ruined? The judge's expression didn't change, but her pen stopped. Marin's lawyer stood. Your Honor, Mr. Voss is not a party to this custody matter. Judge Morris looked at him. Mr. Voss appears central to the alleged conflict affecting the child's care. Continue. Celeste called Dr. Sloan by video. She testified from her office, still in scrubs. Yes, she'd recommended the ICU transfer. Yes, the delay had increased the risk. No, she hadn't been consulted before the bed was reassigned. No, she would not have approved of Dr. Vale making that decision, involving her own child and a patient connected to a personal relationship. Marin looked down. Her lawyer tried to soften it. Dr. Sloan, is Ivy currently stable? Yes. So no permanent harm has been established. Dr. Sloan's face cooled. In pediatric cardiology, we don't wait for permanent harm before we call a decision unsafe. The judge wrote that down. Elaine testified next, also by video. She confirmed Ivy had called for her mother from the hallway. She confirmed Marin was with Julian near bed 7. She confirmed the override timing. Marin cried silently through the testimony. I didn't look at her. Then it was her turn. I'd watched Marin speak at conferences, donor panels, hospital trainings, always clear, impressive, controlled. Today she looked like someone standing in the ruins of her favorite version of herself. Her lawyer guided her gently. Dr. Vale, do you love your daughter more than anything? Yes. Did you intend to harm her? No, never. Why did you approve the override? Marin wiped her cheek. Julian told me Nolan was deteriorating and had no other option. I believed Ivy could remain in transitional care briefly. I planned to explain it to Rowan. Did you falsify Mr. Vale's consent? I did not personally type the note, but I allowed the assumption. Do you understand now that was wrong? Yes. Her lawyer nodded, satisfied. Then Celeste stood. Dr. Vale, how long have you known Julian Voss? Since medical school. You had a romantic relationship? Yes, years ago. Did your husband know Mr. Voss had been visiting your home while he was out of town? Marin's head lifted sharply. Celia made a small sound behind her. No, Marin whispered. How many times did he visit? I don't remember exactly. More than once. Yes. Did you tell your husband? No. Did your daughter see him? Marin closed her eyes. Yes. Did your daughter tell Mr. Vale that Mr. Voss came over and you got quiet when she entered the room? Marin's lawyer objected. Judge Morris allowed Celeste to rephrase. Were there conversations with Mr. Voss in your home that you did not want your daughter to hear? Marin's mouth trembled. Yes. The room went still. Celeste didn't press the romance angle further. She was too good for that. She moved back to Ivy. Dr. Vale, when Ivy called for you from the hallway, where were you? Near bed 7, with Mr. Voss. When Mr. Vale arrived and objected, did you tell him not to start? Yes. Did you ask him to be mature? I believe Julian used that phrase. Did you correct Mr. Voss when he implied Mr. Vale was being immature for objecting to Ivy's delay? Marin swallowed. No. Did you defend Ivy's right to the bed that had been reserved for her? Tears fell again. No. Did you defend Mr. Voss? Yes. Did you answer Mr. Voss's call after leaving Ivy's ICU room the night she asked why you didn't come? Marin covered her mouth. The question landed like a door closing. Yes, she said. Celeste sat down. Marin's lawyer tried to recover, arguing that one bad medical decision shouldn't sever a mother's role, that Marin had clinical expertise, that Rowan was reacting out of betrayal and anger. Then Judge Morris asked one question. Dr. Vale, do you believe Mr. Vale is wrong to distrust your unilateral medical decisions for Ivy at this time? Marin opened her mouth, closed it, looked at me, then looked at the judge. No, she whispered. Celia gasped. Marin's lawyer closed his eyes. The judge recessed for 20 minutes. In the hallway, Marin's mother grabbed her arm. Why would you say that? Marin pulled away. Because it's true. Celia looked at me with pure hatred. You did this. No, Leonard said quietly. Marin did. Celia turned as if she might strike him. He didn't move. Marin sank onto a bench. For a moment she looked less like my wife and more like a stranger after a storm, surrounded by pieces she couldn't name. I almost felt the old instinct to sit beside her. Almost. Then Ivy's voice from the night before came back to me. Daddy did. I stayed where I was. Judge Morris returned and issued the temporary order. Primary physical custody to me while Ivy remained in active treatment. Joint legal custody, but sole temporary medical decision-making authority to me for cardiac care and hospital placement decisions. Marin to have supervised hospital visits, unless Ivy requested otherwise. Neither parent to expose Ivy to Julian Voss. Marin's face crumpled completely at that last part. Celia began crying loudly. The judge looked at her once, and the sound stopped. Outside the courtroom, Marin approached me again. Celeste stayed at my side. Can I see Ivy tonight? Marin's voice was barely there. I'll ask her. Please tell her I love her. I won't lie for you, I said. But I'll tell her you said it. She flinched. Maybe that sounded cruel. Maybe it was. But my days of polishing her choices into gentler shapes were over. When I returned to the hospital, Ivy was sitting up with a tray in front of her. Someone had found pancakes from the cafeteria breakfast menu, even though it was nearly evening. Elaine, I suspected. Did the judge yell? Ivy asked. No. Did Mom cry? Yes. She thought about that. Do I have to see her? Not tonight. Relief crossed her face so fast it broke my heart. Then she lifted her fork. Can we eat pancakes for dinner at home when I'm better? Yes, with extra syrup. Obviously. She smiled. That smile made the whole courtroom worth it. Behind us, my phone buzzed. A news alert from a local health reporter. St. Aurelia Board removes pediatric access director amid emergency review. Marin's name wasn't in the headline yet, but everyone who mattered already knew. Marin came to the house 3 days after the court order. I knew she was coming before she even rang the bell. The security camera sent a notification to my phone. She stood on the porch holding a cardboard box, hair loose, face bare, looking nothing like the woman who used to command hospital corridors. Ivy was still at St. Aurelia, improving slowly. I'd come home for 2 hours to shower, change, and collect more of her things. The house felt strange without the machines of the hospital. Too quiet, too normal, as if the walls hadn't heard years of conversations I now questioned. I opened the door but didn't step aside. Can I come in? Marin asked. No. Pain crossed her face. Rowan, what do you need? She lifted the box slightly. I brought back your father's watch and some papers from your office. I thought you might need them. My office has a lock. I still had the key. Not anymore. She looked down. I'd changed the locks that morning. Not out of drama. Out of procedure. The house title was in my trust, from before the marriage. The mortgage payments were mine. Temporary occupancy was under review, and Celeste had been very clear. Protect the documents, protect the medications, Protect Ivy's environment. Maren held out the box. I took it but didn't invite her in. She wrapped her arms around herself. The hospital made it official today. Removed from position, not just suspended. I know. My badge doesn't work. I walked into the building and security had to escort me to HR. The words shook as she said them. She wasn't only grieving the job. She was grieving the status, the doors, the way people used to step aside. I'm sorry that was hard, I said. She looked up quickly, searching for softness. I'd meant it, but sympathy isn't the same as return. They're reviewing my license, she said. I know Julian's company is being investigated. He blocked my number. There it was. The man she'd chosen over us hadn't even stayed available for the fallout. I'm not surprised, I said. She laughed once, bitter and broken. Of course you're not. You saw him clearly. Everyone did except me. No, you saw him too. You just liked how you felt when he needed you. Her eyes filled. I know. That admission sat between us, small and late. I know, she repeated. I liked being the person he called. I liked feeling important in a way that wasn't about bills or appointments or oxygen numbers. With you, everything was serious: Ivy's medication, insurance, my parents, the fund, the house. With him, I felt like the version of me before everything got heavy. A year ago, that confession might have pulled me toward her. I might have said I understood. I might have apologized for how heavy our life had become, as if our daughter's illness were a burden we'd chosen badly rather than a reality we were supposed to carry together. Now I only heard what she was really saying. When life got heavy, I said, you handed me the weight and went looking for someone who made you feel light. She cried then, not the controlled tears from court, not the angry tears from the hospital. These were ugly and quiet, the kind that bend your shoulders. I am so sorry, she said. I'm sorry for Ivy. I'm sorry for the bed. I'm sorry for Julian. I'm sorry for lying. I'm sorry for making you the boring, safe place while I chased old feelings. I don't know how to fix it, but I will do anything. There is no fixing this back into a marriage. Her head jerked up. Don't say that. I already filed. People file and stop. I won't. She stepped forward. Rowan, please. We have 9 years. We have a daughter. That's why I stayed as long as I did. You loved me. Yes. The answer hurt her more than anger would have. Then how can you just stop? I didn't just stop. I watched you choose Julian in the hallway. I watched you defend him in front of staff. I watched you ask me to help you answer our daughter after she asked why you didn't come. I watched you take his call outside her room. Love didn't stop in one moment. It was cut piece by choices you made after you knew we were watching. She covered her mouth. I opened the box and saw my father's watch on top. Beneath it were folders from my office. One had already been opened. I looked at her. I didn't take anything, Maren whispered. You opened it. I was looking for the insurance documents. Why? She hesitated. There it was again, the pause. Why? I repeated. My mother said I needed to know what I'd have access to if you tried to cut me off completely. I laughed once. Maren flinched. I came here to apologize. You came here to apologize and check insurance access. That's not fair. Stop using that word in my house. She went still. I took the divorce folder from the entry table, where Celeste had told me to leave it ready. Maren stared at it. No, I held it out. This is the proposed temporary separation agreement. It includes the house occupancy schedule, vehicle return, financial disclosures, and Ivy's care terms. Your attorney already has a copy. She didn't take it. I don't want your terms. They're not a request for romance, Maren. They're a legal document. This is our home. The house was purchased through my father's trust before our marriage. You know that. I lived here. Yes. And for now, you won't enter without agreement because Ivy's medications, records, and recovery environment are here. I'm her mother. You keep saying that as if the word erases the conduct. Her voice broke. I lost my job. I may lose my license. My parents are furious. Julian disappeared. Ivy won't look at me. And now you're taking my home. No, I said. I'm taking back the illusion that you could risk everything and still return to everything. She stared at me like she finally understood the size of the room closing in around her. I continued. The Lexus is titled under my trust's business lease. Return it by Friday. Your parents' subsidy is over. Travis's car loan is over. The foundation will no longer list you as liaison. Your emergency access to Ivy's records is limited to what the court allows. We'll communicate through the co-parenting app once Celeste sets it up. Marin swayed slightly. For years, all of that had been invisible to her because it worked. The car started, the mortgage got paid, the credit card cleared, the hospital got its reports, the house opened, the husband absorbed. Now every system was stopping, and she was hearing the silence. Rowan, she whispered, I have nowhere to go. You have your salary, your savings. I may be suspended without pay. You have your parents. She gave a broken laugh. They blame me for losing your money. I almost said I was sorry. Then I remembered Celia asking about the mortgage before she'd asked about Ivy. That's between you and them. Marin looked past me into the house. Her eyes landed on the framed photo in the hallway. The three of us at Ivy's 5th birthday, all wearing paper crowns, from the year when the worst hadn't happened yet. She stared at it like she wanted to climb into the frame and hide. I want to see her room. No, I said. Please. I won't touch anything. No. Her face hardened suddenly, old pride rising up through the grief. You're enjoying this. No, you are enjoying this. You finally get to be the saint and make me the monster. I stepped closer, for the first time letting my anger show. You want to know what I enjoyed? I enjoyed watching Ivy eat pancakes after the judge said you couldn't override her care. I enjoyed seeing her sleep because a monitor was finally where it should have been. I enjoyed 1 full hour without wondering whether my wife was making decisions for our daughter or for the man she used to love. That's what I enjoyed. Marin had no answer. My phone buzzed. A hospital public statement. St. Aurelia Children's Hospital announces that Dr. Marinvale has been removed from her role as Pediatric Access Director following an emergency review of access protocols. The hospital has initiated external compliance oversight and suspended vendor engagement with Voss Medical Solutions pending investigation. Marin's phone buzzed too. Then again. Then again. She looked down, and I watched the last of her public identity break apart across the screen in notifications. Removed, she whispered. Not resigned. Not stepped back. Removed. A word with no elegance. One that didn't let her pretend she'd chosen accountability before accountability chose her. She looked at me, and for the first time since the ICU hallway, there was no defense left. I lost everything, she said. I shook my head. No. You still have the chance to become a mother Ivy can trust someday. But you lost the marriage that let you avoid becoming that sooner. I stepped back and began to close the door. Marin put one hand against it. Do you hate me? I thought about it. The honest answer surprised me. No. Her eyes filled with desperate hope. I ended it before she could build on it. I just don't trust you with my heart, my home, or my daughter's safety anymore. Then I closed the door. She stayed on the porch for several minutes. The camera showed her standing there, holding the divorce folder against her chest. Then she walked away. I locked the door and picked up my father's watch from the box. Its second hand moved steadily, indifferent and precise. For 2 days, people had told me not to overreact. But sometimes the right reaction looks cold because it arrives only after love has finished doing all the crying it can. The divorce was finalized 7 months later, on a Thursday morning, rain tapping against the courthouse windows. No one shouted. No one fainted. No one begged in front of the judge. Real endings are often quieter than the damage that caused them. Marin sat at the opposite table wearing a gray suit. Her hair was shorter now. She looked thinner, not better, exactly changed. Her attorney whispered to her twice. She nodded both times without looking at me. The final agreement gave me primary physical custody of Ivy. Marin received structured visitation that could expand if Ivy's therapist recommended it. Medical decision-making for Ivy's cardiac care remained mine, with information access for Marin but no unilateral authority. contingent on her staying compliant with treatment, ethics review, and the co-parenting rules. The house stayed with my trust. The Lexus was returned. The Ardent family subsidies remained terminated. Travis never repaid the loan, though his wife sent me a handwritten apology I didn't answer. Some doors are best left closed, even when someone knocks politely. The Vail Pediatric Recovery Fund resumed disbursements after St. Aurelia accepted external oversight, rebuilt its bed assignment protocols, created conflict recusal rules, and agreed that no hospital employee connected to a patient by family or personal history could take part in access decisions for that patient. The fund's first resumed payment didn't go through Marin's old department. It funded an independent patient advocate program, named after no one. I insisted on that not every good thing needs a family name attached. Julian Voss lost his hospital vendor contracts first. Then 2 other hospitals paused their relationships with his company. Then Voss Medical Solutions collapsed under audit findings, pricing irregularities, and one procurement director who apparently decided immunity sounded better than loyalty. Julian tried to blame Marin in a written statement. Her attorney answered with his own messages. After that, he stopped giving statements. His son Nolan recovered. I was glad. That mattered to me more than I expected. Children shouldn't pay forever for the selfishness of adults. Ivy asked once whether Nolan was okay, and when I told her yes, she nodded and said, "Good. He didn't steal it. His dad did." She was 8, and she understood more moral clarity than half the adults in this story. Marin didn't lose her medical license permanently, but she accepted a formal reprimand, mandatory ethics supervision, and a long restriction from administrative authority. She left St. Aurelia. Months later, I heard she was working at a community clinic 3 towns over, seeing patients under oversight. I hoped she became good again. That sentence took me months to mean, not because I wanted her back. I didn't. But Ivy deserved a mother who became more than the worst night of her life. Whether Marin would manage that was no longer mine to control. After the hearing, Marin waited near the courthouse exit. Celeste touched my arm. "Want me to stay?" I looked at Marin. "No, it's all right." Celeste gave me a look that meant she'd be 30 feet away, ready to step in. Then she walked toward the lobby. Marin approached slowly. "Rowan." Marin. The old name sounded strange without the old life around it. "It's done," she said. "Yes." She held a folder against her chest, not unlike the day on the porch. "I signed everything. I didn't fight the final medical authority." I noticed. She looked out at the rain. "Ivy said I could come to her recital next month." "She did." "I won't sit near you." "That's probably best." A small, painful smile moved across her face. "She told me I'm allowed to clap but not cry loudly." I smiled too, despite myself. "That sounds like Ivy." Silence settled. Then Marin said, "I need to tell you something without asking for anything." I waited. "I used to think your steadiness meant you didn't feel things as deeply as I did." Her voice shook, but she kept going. "I thought that because you could handle the bills, the appointments, my parents, Ivy's fear, my schedule, all of it, it cost you less. I thought Julian understood my emotions because he made them loud. But you were the one carrying the life we actually had." I said nothing. She wiped her cheek. "I'm sorry I called you boring." In my head. "I'm sorry I made safety feel like something I was entitled to, instead of something you were giving. I'm sorry I picked the person who made me feel important over the child who needed me and the husband who trusted me." That apology was the closest thing to truth she'd given me. It didn't open the door, but it let me put down a small stone I'd been carrying. "Thank you for saying that," I said. Her eyes searched mine. There was hope there, quiet, foolish, human hope. "Is there any future where—" She stopped and laughed at herself, ashamed. "I know." I said I wasn't asking. I looked through the courthouse glass at the wet steps outside, then back at her. "No." She closed her eyes. I didn't soften it. Softness had confused us too many times already. "I forgive parts of it," I said. "I may forgive more later, but forgiveness isn't remarriage. It isn't trust. And it doesn't take us back to that hallway and put Ivy in the bed where she should have been." Marin pressed her lips together. "No," she whispered. It doesn't. I hope you keep showing up for her, properly, patiently, without making her responsible for making you feel forgiven. I'm trying. Keep trying. She nodded, then stepped aside. For once, she let me leave without reaching for me. I walked out into the rain. Ivy was waiting in my car with my sister Nora, who had flown in after the first court hearing and simply never left until things stabilized. Ivy wore a yellow raincoat and fox socks, a book in her lap and a juice box in one hand. When I opened the driver's door, she leaned forward. Is it over? I got in and closed the door. Yes, I said. It's over. Nora squeezed my shoulder from the back seat. You okay? I thought about that question the way I might have 7 months earlier, measuring okay by whether my marriage could be saved, whether Marin was crying, whether the house still looked like the life I'd planned. Now I measured it differently. Ivy was breathing without a monitor. Her emergency plan was updated. Her school knew who to call. The house was quieter, but it was honest. The fund was helping children without being used as anyone's private ladder. And the people who'd treated my patience as weakness had learned that patience was not permission. I'm okay, I said. Ivy studied me in the rearview mirror. Are you sad? Yes. Are you mad? Not as much. Are we safe? I turned around and looked at her. Her face was fuller now. Her eyes were brighter. There were still hard days ahead. More appointments, more tests, more questions no child should have to ask. But she was here, buckled into the back seat, rain on the windows, syrup packets from breakfast hidden in her coat pocket because she thought I didn't know. Yes, I said. From now on, we choose ourselves. She thought about that, then nodded with serious approval. Can choosing ourselves include pancakes? Nora laughed. I started the car. It can include pancakes with extra syrup. Obviously. We drove past St. Aurelia on the way home. The pediatric wing rose above the street, glass reflecting the gray sky. Somewhere inside, parents were waiting, nurses were moving, children were fighting battles they never asked for. For a long time, that building had represented fear to me, then betrayal, then consequence. Now, strangely, it represented something else, proof. Proof that systems could be challenged. Proof that quiet men could act. Proof that love without boundaries could become a trap, but love with courage could become shelter. At a red light, Ivy leaned her head against the window. Daddy? Yes. Do you think Mom will get better? I watched the light. I hope so. Do you miss her? The question didn't hurt the way it once would have. I miss who I thought we were, I said. Ivy nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Then she said, I miss when she made waffles. We can learn waffles. You burn toast. I can improve. You need supervision. Strict supervision. She smiled. The light turned green. I drove us home. Not to the old life. Not to the marriage. Not to the version of myself who kept paying, forgiving, explaining, smoothing things over, and staying until everyone else was comfortable. Home meant Ivy's blanket on the couch, Nora singing badly in the kitchen, medication charts on the fridge, legal folders finally closed, and a front door that opened only to people who respected the life inside it. That night, after pancakes for dinner, Ivy fell asleep during a movie with her head on my arm. I sat there long after the credits ended. The house was dim. Rain whispered against the windows. My father's watch ticked on the side table, steady as ever. My phone buzzed once. A message from Julian. Thank you for letting me come to the recital. I'll follow Ivy's rules. I read it, then set the phone down without answering. Not every message needed a response. Not every apology needed a doorway. Not every past love deserved a second future. I looked at my daughter, sleeping safely beside me, and finally understood what I had kept. Not the marriage. Not the house. Not the money. I had kept the one promise that mattered. When Ivy needed someone to choose her, I did. And I would keep choosing her every morning.